What is going on, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the remix album by Limp Bizkit. Basically, this album is called New Old Songs, and it came out in the fall of 2001, just right before 2002, right before the winter of 2002. Basically, a pretty quick follow-up to the massive year 2000 album Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water, which went like 6, 7, 8 times platinum, something like that. Limp Bizkit was still kind of on a high, but this album is good. I would definitely say it's good, and it has a pretty good pitch towards it, but it has a couple of things that sabotage it. It's not the best produced album. It's definitely good, but it's not excellently. To me, it's not as much of a classic as Chocolate Starfish is. Doesn't have the sheer energy of Significant Other, and it's just not quite as revolutionary as $3 Bill, y'all. But I would have to say it's got some pitches. For one thing, a big minus about this album is just the fact that it doesn't have any singles, so I kind of look after it. It's kind of surprising. Maybe Limp Bizkit was just trying to have this be like a conduit album, just kind of an in-betweener kind of situation as far as that kind of went, just because it just feels like for the most part, like it seems as if most folks probably didn't even realize a lot about this album. I think folks probably realized about Significant Other and Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water, but this is one that just is nary kind of talked about and such. And when I was kind of on a Limp Bizkit kick back in 2016, I originally thought about ordering this album from the library and decided to mess with it, but I just ultimately didn't, just because I think it had something to do with the fact that it just didn't have a single. And I saw the reviews on it, and they didn't really praise this project too much. Like All Music gave this album like a 2 stars out of 5 and such, and there's just not a lot of general content as far as talk. There's not a lot of general content as far as talking about it. So I thought that was kind of the thing. Now it is a pretty good album. I think it's good, not excellent, but it's in the kind of various degrees of that. There's 16 songs on here, and I wound up liking 9 of them. So that's more than half, but not by much. That's why I kind of feel like it's good, but I really think it could have used the bravado. Fred Durst and Limp Bizkit and them were pretty much on a pretty ravenous high throughout 2001 with Chocolate Starfish. And I just kind of question why they didn't pump out at least one extra single that could have carried it over. Even if it would have only had one, I think that would have definitely done wonders for this project. But I do feel like you get enough of it on here. Like the thing about this album is when Spotify talks about it, they said that the most popular song when it comes to listens was like the remix of Get Your Groove On, which has Exhibit on there and that type of stuff. And I kind of feel like that one's not one of the songs I recommend, but it's just kind of like a decent bop-ish little club bop on there. But the pair, I feel like probably the original Get Your Groove On Chocolate Starfish is just better. That one just had a lot more of like a kind of dismayed and kind of like more alarming kind of production on there. It just sounded a lot more glittery and sparkly, but I just, this one's just kind of like an in-between kind of maybe light club lick type song as far as that kind of goes. Just like a decent bop, but nothing really star-studded and spectacular as far as that kind of goes. But yeah, the Get Your Groove On is just definitely more of like a hangout song. So I'm going to go ahead and recommend the 9 songs out of 16 I recommend. So there's a lot of remixes of My Way on here. That was a pretty massive Limp Bizkit song from what I remember. So that's actually one that has the most remixes. There's a lot of songs on here, a lot of Chocolate Starfish, not quite as much at $3 Bill Y'all and Significant Other, but there is a little bit of stuff in here. So I'll go ahead and recommend these 9 songs. So they would be the Rollin', DJ Monk remix, the DJ Lethal remix of My Way, the Butch Vig remix of Nookie, the Dub Pistols remix of My Way, the Take a Look Around remix by Timbaland, the Crushed remix, which has Bosco on there, Faith/Fame, which is kind of like remixed by Josh Abraham and Fred Durst, Counterfeit DJ Lethal remix, and then My Way, the DJ Premier remix. That's a lot of stuff on here. Kind of talk about some of these. Like I feel like one that was kind of almost like an almost song for me, but I did ultimately wind up liking it later, was the My Way DJ Premier remix. Like he gives it like a lot more of like an echoey type feel. It's basically the same beat as the one on Chocolate Starfish, but it's just kind of a lot more sluggish, dreary, and echoey. I definitely felt like that vibe. He just really gave it, like if you know about like DJ Screw and chopped and screwed music and that type of stuff, it's not quite slow motion kind of like demon voice type raps on there, but it's just very kind of dreary and just has a lot of just like malaise to it. It's just interesting that he transformed that song with the echoes with those guitars are on that song. He just gave it a lot more of a dreary feel. I do like it. It is kind of like a lazy highlight, but it's just virtually about the same. He just kind of more distorted the song more than I was expecting from that sort of thing. So that's a good one. My Way, the Dub Pistols remix, is just kind of more of an instrumental. It doesn't really have so much rap vocals on there. I mean, Fred Durst is kind of on the song, but it's just lightly kind of oriented in there. It just really feels like house music and just kind of DJ cutting the turntables type stuff on there. This is really very much like a rave tune. It's a very catchy dance tune. This feels like a very throbbing, kind of seamless night. It's just one of the best dance songs on here. I feel like this one, Nookie, the Butch Vig remix, and then like there's another one on here like Rollin', the DJ Monk remix are some great dance tunes. So if you're looking for some more of those, like I feel like Rollin', the DJ Monk tune, I'm surprised that there weren't more hit remixes of like Rollin', because that was a pretty big Limp Bizkit song also. But it's just very much a chunky kind of rave and hit techno cut. I just kind of feel like it's just a very good one for that. Lots of quick dance vibes, and it's just an overall solid party kicker. I just feel like that's a nice one. So yeah, Rollin', the DJ Monk remix, the Nookie Butch Vig remix, and then My Way, the Dub Pistols mix are kind of some great dance tunes for kind of stepping out. So to talk about Nookie, the Butch Vig remix, this one's like a very heavy rave boiler. It's a dance bop, definite. Nookie, the Butch Vig remix is a heavy rave boiler. It's a dance bop. It's got some dance bop craziness towards it. And it's a little bit more than the original. It's crazier than the original Nookie off a Significant Other. This one just has a lot more of like a crazy kind of dance electronic kind of vibe. The original Nookie was like a huge metal song. It was definitely a pretty ravenous metal cut, but this one's a lot more this dance kind of craziness, just fit for a rave and just real ravenous kind of night out. It's just a real electro bop kind of hit, real catchy bop, I would have to say. If you don't know who Butch Vig is, he kind of helped produce some Nirvana albums and stuff like that. He's a big rock. He's pretty high up in like the rock producer role as far as that kind of goes. So he's got some good stuff. He's got some credits to his name. Take a look around. The Timbaland remix is a real nice icebreaker. It's a great kickoff song, and it has a good murky kind of rock rap beat on here, and it's just a real powder keg of a song. It's definitely one that I would listen to first when things are getting ready to kick off. This really has that kind of vibe. It's kind of similar to the original Take a Look Around. It just kind of has like a distorted, kind of choppy vibe of that original song. It's just not quite as rock oriented. And that one's a lot more of like an evening tune and just kind of like a ruminating one, the original Take a Look Around, but this one's a little bit more of like a kind of turntables a bit, some mild dance music, and just kind of an easy kind of starting off the party, kind of kick things off and just kind of get crunk a little bit, get some drinks in your system kind of vibe towards it. It's interesting that Timbaland morphed that song into that. It's a pretty good look for him to do that. A surprising one on here is Crushed with Bosco. Like, Bosco is a cat that kind of affiliates with E40, so it's interesting. He kind of does similar stuff to like the cat that was on California Love. I forget his Roger Troutman. Like Bosco's pretty similar to Roger Troutman, and that's kind of the concept that he kind of created. Like this version of Crush was Crushed. If you're looking for that song, was on the End of Days soundtrack, which I reviewed a few months ago, so you can find a exclusive Limp Bizkit song on there. But this Crush remix just like a really nice entry kind of club bop. So it's got some good Bosco vocals on there. He really, with his auto tune on there, really helps the song quite a bit. And it's just a basic kind of fraternizing, late sesh kind of song. I just feel like this is an easy kind of highlight. This is one where you're just kind of mingling at the club more, just kind of appreciating the sights, just that sort of onset as far as that kind of goes. Just it's not so much like it doesn't have to be a dance song, but just kind of the Crush remix doesn't have to be a dance song, but it's just kind of in the midst of being at like a night venue and stuff like that. Just kind of more of like a congregating, fraternizing type tune just for being out and about. It's just an easy one for that kind of expression and just kind of being there, but not necessarily where you're automatically going to dance and automatically going to get drinks and that type of stuff. Just a little bit of a mingle kind of song, just entry kind of stuff as far as that kind of goes. It's a good one. Kind of an interesting song that got pulled off here that I was surprised by was just kind of getting like a makeshift rock kind of remix song, which is what Faith Fame is. Faith Fame kind of is like a remix song that has a little bit of like a David Bowie song on there, but Faith was kind of like an abstract and kind of more commercial song by Limp Bizkit off a $3 bill, y'all. And it's just interesting the way that they made that one work. It's just a very easygoing makeshift rock remix of like a pretty standard commercial song. It's the most workaday song on here, but this has like a light jive towards it where if you do need like that extra little spice when you're in the car just to kind of pump your fists a little bit and stuff like that, it's just kind of the perspective of getting that. It's just kind of where I feel like this probably could have been a single again, just by the overall affable kind of makeshift vibes that it has. Is the most basic and easygoing of all the songs on here compared to like some of the craziness on here. It was just kind of interesting that it did it and just managed to kind of have like a kind of jivey kind of feel of like makeshift when most makeshift songs don't really typically have that. So it's interesting. Yeah, Faith Fame just has like some light guitar licks, very similar to like Third Eye Blind and like Foo Fighters and some stuff like that. It's one of the more rock oriented songs on here. And then Counterfeit, the DJ Lethal remix. Counterfeit, the DJ Lethal remix is like a nice evening bubbler for things getting ready to pop off. It's a great one to kind of hear when you're getting excited and getting ready to do some stuff and just have a good time. As far as that's, it's not quite a full blown party tune like some of the dance songs I mentioned, but it's definitely one that just kind of gives chills, just in the sense that, yeah, things are going to be good pretty soon. And just the concept of getting ready to have some fun as far as that goes, even if you're just buying like a 12-pack of beer or something like that, just the kind of butterflies that you get when you're having a good time. So it's a great song for that. It's just kind of a shadowy beat on here. It's just got a real nice hit beat. It's just kind of one that's a little bit dark oriented. It's interesting. The Limp Bizkit kind of had some songs that are not quite horrorcore, but they're kind of in the neighboring community of just like some more dark electronic type feels that just have like a lot more autumn tinge and just a lot more creeping kind of veneer towards them. So it's interesting kind of get that. Trying to think of a song I missed here, like the My Way DJ Lethal remix. So this is another one. DJ Lethal really came through on this project. He had some good ones on here. Yeah, another ghostly highlight, very similar to Counterfeit, would be My Way, the DJ Lethal remix. So it's interesting. Limp Bizkit kind of had some creeping kind of vibes on here. This is a very ghostingly breezy kind of bop on here. It's very airy and floaty, has a very airy and floaty kind of beat, and it kind of turns it into like more, it kind of, this production change up kind of turns it into more of like a cooler weather kind of song. I definitely feel like this would be one for anything past like September 15th. This is some good autumn music and this kind of stuff where you're just appreciating the sights and just kind of maybe in like wind jackets and those type things, just our hoodies and kind of just zip up jackets as far as that's kind of concerned. Just a little bit more cooler weather, that sort of pitch. I do like some of these, just interesting kind of get it. Yeah, I would definitely say that the My Way DJ Lethal remix definitely has like a cooler weather kind of chilling kind of vibe about it. Just a little bit more breezy in that sort of sense. But that's basically the concept of some of these. I talked about some of these ones like Rollin', Nookie by Butch Vig, and then My Way, the Dub Pistols remix. I'll have like some dance kind of vibes, and then Take a Look Around is kind of a kickoff dance vibe. Crush is kind of in the club somewhat, just as far as kicking things off and congregating. Faith Fame is kind of like a makeshift kind of jivey, kind of makeshift, kind of commute evening, day, late day, evening commute kind of song for just the malaise of after work and during work, that type of stuff. And then Counterfeit's like a nice bubbler for getting excited. And My Way, the DJ Premier remix is just kind of one that's very similar to like the original song, but just a lot more distorted. So it's just kind of the concept of some of these, just being able to talk about that. And then the My Way DJ Lethal is just like a very kind of breezy, kind of ghosty kind of song as far as that goes. So yeah, me liking 9 songs out of 16. I'm gonna go ahead and give this album a 6.5 out of 10. I feel like that's pretty good. To talk about some of the ones I didn't enjoy, like there's just a lot of kind of choppy kind of beats on here that just don't work that well. Like I feel like the My Way, the William Orbit's mix just didn't quite have as good of, like DJ Premier just did it way better. There's a lot of My Way remixes on here, but not all of them work. I kind of feel like the William Orbit's mix just did not really enhance the song that much, and I feel like the original Get Your Groove On just had a better beat than the one that's kind of on here. Like I said, if you do like just a pretty standard, like if you like Crushed and you just want like another kind of, if you like the song Crushed with Bosco on there and you just want like another kind of club hopper that's just kind of about congregating and just kind of marinating and that type of stuff, I'd say this is a kind of decent one, but the beat just didn't quite hook me in enough. Just wasn't hypnotic enough. The original one was just better. I feel like Rearrange was kind of trying to be like an evening bop, very similar to like the Take a Look Around remix, where Timbaland gave Fred Durst and the band two kind of distorted, kind of more evening creeping kind of tunes for stepping out and dancing. But Rearrange just didn't quite work quite as well. This was not quite as pulled off in terms of Rearranged. Kind of the original Rearranged by Limp Bizkit off a Significant Other was just kind of like a dreary kind of makeshift kind of After Effects song for like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock p.m. But this one kind of turned it into like an evening kind of night jive tune. And the Timbaland remix kind of turned it into like an evening kind of night jive tune that just didn't quite work quite as well. I feel like the Timbaland remix is trying to give like Rearranged a little bit more of a night jive towards it that just didn't match up with the vocals of the songs. That's just more of like a singing kind of groaning on kind of song that just had a lot more malaise and ruminating about it that just didn't quite translate to like a dance song. And Together Now is trying to be like a rock rap kind of beat, and that just did not catch quite as well. The rock rap beat of "In Together Now" is just not quite as rousing. It's the same thing with like "Break Stuff" by DJ Lethal. That one just was trying to be like a dance kind of rock rap kind of party starter, where "Break Stuff" was a pretty rousing song on the original, but just didn't quite have the energy matchup. I feel like the production choice of that one was just kind of poor considering the rest of the songs on this album, the bar how it was kind of set. I mean, some of these songs, the thing about it was getting like a hip hop remix of like, you know, new metal and stuff. You kind of had to have like a taste for what the direction that you wanted with the song. When that didn't happen, where you look at "Break Stuff," which is really like a rowdy kind of mosh pit song, then you kind of turn it into like kind of like a mild crunk type song that's supposed to be like a dance cut to it. Just didn't quite have the translation well. Didn't like the P. Diddy remix of "My Way." That one just didn't quite pull it off as well. That one's trying to be more of like an arena rap kind of concert type song, and it just didn't carry the energy quite as well. And yeah, there just were some ones on here. The Neptunes remix of "Nookie" was not an attractive version of the song "Nookie." I felt like that just didn't capture the crazy energy of that song and deliver upon it that well. So just talking about some of those, half the album just kind of are the visualization, because I think the producer role of trying to remix these songs and put a new spin on them had to be visualized correctly. And when it didn't happen, or the image was kind of sabotaged, or just didn't match the song's energy, or didn't contribute and convey it in a way that needed that actual pitch, it kind of detracted. So I feel like it just was kind of odd to get some of these. I mean, I do feel like some of the Limp Bizkit vibes on here, like some of these rave and kind of techno tunes, work extremely well. There are some good remixes of "My Way" on here that add like some new life towards it. And I feel like some of these kind of mild kind of dance bops on here, like "Take a Look Around" and then "Counterfeit," that do a good job of just kind of getting you excited just for that pitch of getting things started. And then the "Makeshift" kind of vibe of "Faith Fame" was a good one, but it's just kind of it's just a mixed bag. It just comes down to some of them work, some of them are just kind of patchy. You just kind of have to decide. Yeah, I just would say this album is kind of a mixed bag. Some of these ideas work, some of them don't. The imagery just doesn't quite connect and convey quite as well. And it's just kind of the concept that the thing with Limp Bizkit is they're very feral kind of musicians, and they need something to kind of siphon and kind of like be a conduit for their energy to kind of convey it and just express it with like the most vividness about it. And some of these productions, when they don't work, just kind of make it kind of sound a lot more awkward, just because Fred Durst is not like a sheer lyricist. So the productions definitely have to hit in order for it to happen. This is kind of the thing. But yeah, I give this album a 6.5 out of 10. The social score I'll give a 7, just because I did like 9 songs on here, and it did have a lot of good rave kind of moments and good dance moments, and just overall, it's just really too bad this album didn't have a single. It really could have used it. I think that would have been a big contribution to really help bolster it more. I think there's plenty of songs on here that do have a lot of vibe. I do think this is a pretty good weekend album for the most part, minus like Faith Fame. This whole album is basically damn near a weekend album to some degree or variation. It's just kind of the concept about it as far as how that kind of goes. Was just kind of is just a patchy project. You just have to refer back to just kind of a patchy project. But I would have to say, in terms of that, this is kind of the concept that because there's really no single and the things are so varied as far as like some of these being expressed towards different kind of vibes, it's just one that kind of seems like it's going to be an album that the mixtures and tastes are going to be different, just because it's not really like a discern, like since none of these songs got airplay, it's just kind of more choice of just opinionated kind of an album as far as that kind of goes. And that's, you know, in terms of what I caught from it, that's kind of the concept. But you can refer to this review as kind of like you can refer to this review as kind of like a tour guide as far as stuff to kind of figure out to mess with. That's kind of the concept. So in terms of the future, like Limp Bizkit has not really been around. Like they dropped an album in late 2021, but before that they had not dropped anything since 2011. Fred Durst is pretty, like these days, Fred Durst is just very like sporadic and just kind of his update schedule. There was supposed to be an album that was going to come out called Stampede of the Disco. There was supposed to be an album that was supposed to come out called Stampede of the Disco Elephants. I really did want that project, but it just never manifested. Fred Durst has said in the past that album is actually floating around somewhere on the internet, but I just don't know. If I could find it, I'd probably review it, but that's just kind of the thing about it. So I just would have to say this is an above average album. It's just a notch or two above average, but for the most part, it's good. It's got some great remixes on there, good pitch of like some dance vibes and clever concepts as far as the stuff it did with it. But I do feel like it needed a single, and like some of the patchiness kind of bogs it down in certain concepts. That's just kind of the thing.